Hello there, this is Jelaine Parks from Sprigg Talent Management Solutions. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to spend about the next 12 to 15 minutes maximum to introduce you to and highlight some of the key aspects of the Sprigg performance management system. And specifically, we're going to focus on a few different areas. Primarily, we're going to look at the review process itself. But we are also going to spend a little bit of time on the navigation side. So what is it like being a user with Sprigg, both from the employee as well as the leadership perspective? And the idea here is just to emphasize the ease of use and the ease of navigation. And then we'll wrap up our demo with really just a few minutes in the back end of the system to highlight a key feature called performance review templates. And this particular module or tool allows for you to adjust the performance review template based on the specific team or audience's needs. So if you have one group who is focused in perhaps just being measured on goals, and another group is looking at being measured on competencies, you can adjust their performance review template accordingly. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to spend just, again, the first few minutes really trying to elaborate on the ease of use or the simplicity of Sprigg from the employee's perspective. So let's start here. We're going to log in as the employee, and I'll provide then what is really just a homepage tour, and we'll talk about some of the key features. So right away, you can see that there's a full customization piece within Sprigg. You're able to do the internal branding along with look and feel, but you can also have a tremendous amount of flexibility within the customization of the site itself. So not just from content management, but from feature management. So various tools or modules can actually be turned on and off with the system, truly giving you the opportunity to make the site your very own. So on the left side of our page, we've got a couple of key areas in the metric side. So we've got the goals and the competencies. In this particular review, we'll measure both. We have a self-evaluation component, professional development plan, a notes feature, along with the feedback inbox, which is really linked directly to, and I'll draw your attention to the top of the page, the Sprigg Social tool. And Sprigg Social is really meant for a key purpose of facilitating an ongoing dialogue between a manager and between an individual, a manager, as well as their team. So we've got access to full groups and teams, but along with a company directory. So I could actually open up somebody's profile and provide them some direct feedback. And I also have an option here as to how I look to actually share that information. So I could share that with the public, or I could just keep a dialogue running between myself and my employee, or perhaps a piece of feedback only visible to the manager with an option to copy HR. Okay, and then back down to the desktop, we've got on the right side of the landing page, we have a couple of key areas, my tasks and my upcoming meetings. And the my tasks is really just the to-do list for the user. Anytime this person's leader is looking for an update on a goal or perhaps an update on their development plan, the person will initially receive an email. So this has full email integration, prompting them to get into the Sprigg system and complete that task. And then next, we also have what is an upcoming meetings feature, which allows you to basically book a meeting with your leader or your direct report without ever having to leave the Sprigg application. And this also has a full integration capability with any calendaring system you're using. Next, you'll see what is just a glance or an overview of the performance status. You can see the status bars that indicate where the person is at within the performance management cycle. And then lastly, we've just got some output from the Sprigg Social tool, communications that way, and then the option just to share any sort of key strategic initiatives. So perhaps if you have any outcome from a strategic plan, elements that way, those can be posted. Okay, from a goals point of view, we can see that this person has actually been assigned goals. And when we get over to the leader's side, we'll actually illustrate or demonstrate that for you. But if I were to look at my assigned goals, I would simply access it under the other goals section. Open this up, and now I've got view of the full content. I would also have been notified that this assigned goal came in. If at any time I wanted to provide an update on this goal, its status, I would simply click the update tab, open up new update, and then provide any sort of status report to my leader on how my goal is progressing. And I can indicate it through a red, yellow, or green. And once I save that, it actually then prompts me to just share that with my leader. Okay, so what I'd like to do now actually is just leave the employee page and hop over into the leaders side. And what we'll do is we'll actually give a quick tour of the leaders homepage as well, but we'll also look to conduct the performance review. Okay, so right now you should be able to see what is the landing page for the leader. And so you can see it's the same similar features as anyone else has in the organization, same access points, with the key difference being in the leader tools section. And just a quick note on the My Tasks area specifically for leaders. We really did build this feature for leaders more so than anyone else. We never wanted a leader to log into Sprigg and have to think about what they're supposed to be doing next with which one of their direct reports. So you can see that these are quite specific by name and by task. All right, so back over to the leader tools section. If I click on here, where I'm brought to immediately is an overview of all of my direct reports. Now this will look and behave the same as your org chart. So I will be able to see any next level leader reporting relationships or immediate direct reports along with any direct reports that belong to them. So again, structurally, this will mirror image your org chart. If we were to look beside each one of the immediate direct reports names, we'll see a couple of key features. One is called the feedback tab. We're very, very big on the whole feedback, regular touch points here at Sprigg. We look to promote those kinds of conversations as regular contact throughout the performance year because we believe that performance management is actually a conversation. And so if we can facilitate that through some very simple use of tools, then we believe that that's a very successful review process. Right, so anything that the manager looks to share is, again, an automatic archiving or date stamp. So this is a very useful tool for the leader whereby they're having a real-time feedback folder build for them and an excellent reference piece when it comes time for the review itself. Okay, let's hop back over to the team members section here. And what we're going to do is we're going to conduct a review for Ann Parker, one of our employees here. And the way I do that is I access the Manage tab, which brings me to a specific profile or overview for Ann. And then I would access my toolkit where I can have now viewing several features, including a profile access, looking at their goals at any time, asking for updates on goals. I can conduct the review, of course, any development plan features and progress updates here, conduct a 360 if that's required, looking at my feedback folder, any meeting history. I even have a performance improvement piece to which I can document any sort of action plans and course correction. And I, of course, have a notes journal. So for performance reviews, I simply click on this tab and I'm brought to a dashboard that ensures me that I'm on the right performance year. I'm going to open up the review itself. Now, just a quick mentionable here on what are review types, the feature within Sprigg, which allows you to calibrate and determine the frequency of your own performance reviews. So in this case, we're going to do year end. Best practices would suggest at least a mid-year and a year end, but you can determine the frequency. It could be monthly, quarterly, however that may look. So to initiate the year end review in this case, we're going to open up, and that's going to bring us to a secondary dashboard that just lets us know the employee has not started their self-evaluation yet. We can begin the assessment now from the leader's point of view. And just a quick word here, you can determine exactly who initiates this review process. So we can have the employee look to create their review once the manager has completed theirs. All right, so we'll get this assessment started. And now we're brought directly into the evaluation tools along with the goals and the competency evaluation exercise. So right now I'm in the, again, the performance review component where I'm looking at a particular goal, and I've got all that content in view along with the assessment tools. This is the assigned goal given to Ann Parker, and I need to do a couple of tasks here. I need to provide what is a piece of feedback in addition to a rating. Now you can see the numbers changing as I move up and down the scale here. And the rating system itself is completely customizable, so any of the terminology or vernacular, I can hover my mouse over any of these rating scales to achieve the definition, along with then trying to provide some feedback. So a couple of writing assistant tools for the manager. Initially, we allow them to view what is an immediate window of all the notes that they've been taking on this employee. So instead of hopping around inside the application and pulling the notes out of the manager toolkit, it's just an immediate view here. I'm also able to access what is the feedback bank. And this is just a series of thought starters. This is completely customizable, but anything that I look to click on does auto-populate, but is not hard-coded, so I can modify that any way I like. So once I provide the rating along with the feedback, all I have to do is hit save, and then it prompts me in a very clear information banner what to do next. So competencies is my next portion of the review. Very same process here, where I would be able to view the content, definition of this competency, provide the rating, and then provide a piece of feedback. I certainly don't have to use the feedback bank, but anything I do look to do, I can, again, modify within the text field. Okay, I'll have to hit save, and then it prompts me to move on to the next competency. Okay, and again, similar process here. Okay, and then which prompts us now to move to the third and the final step of the review process, which is the discussion points. And discussion points is a completely customizable area that allows you to determine basically additional kinds of feedback or questions that the leader may wish to ask during the review exercise. So the leader simply fills those out, hit save, and in this case we've done a start, stop, and continue. What do you need to start doing to improve your performance? What do you need to stop doing, or things that are getting in your way? And then essentially things that you need to continue to do to perform optimally. And then lastly, we've got a placeholder for some summary comments. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and finish up the evaluation with a submit. It gives us a quick recap of the areas that we've just completed, and we'll go ahead and submit the review. Now, a couple of key points here to emphasize. One is that as soon as this is submitted, the employee will now receive an email notifying them that it's their turn to get in and complete the self-evaluation component. And the second thing to emphasize is that this portion of the review does not go anywhere other than into the manager's inbox. So it is not forwarded in advance of that conversation. Okay, let's hop over into the team member section again, and instead of logging out to complete the self-evaluation exercise, which is very important, but it does look exactly the same as the process that I just brought you through, what I'd like to do is bring you back to an employee who has a completed review. And we'll open up Jennifer Bright's here. We can see immediately in the overview exercise that she has completed her self-assessment as well as the leaders component. And we'll look to access Jennifer's review through the toolkit. And then we'll be able to view this evaluation from two perspectives. One is what we call the compare contrast. So I'm able to look at the employee's perspective on their performance for this particular goal, along with directly the manager's point of view. And this is exactly why we like to have this information in advance. This will allow the manager to prepare their rationale and thinking as to why they graded a 65 versus the self-assessment of 95. And so that's the same compare contrast for every one of the goals and each one of the competencies in this case. And then the second perspective that we can view from the review side is in fact a more quantitative or formulaic perspective, and that's the view scores. So again, we have that self versus the leader, but this time we have it in a much more granular format. So we've got, in this case, two variables or two metrics, and we have what is the rating times the weighting, which is a weighted average between the two to yield what is an overall score. So that's the self in terms of the self-evaluation compared to, again, the manager's score. Okay, I'm going to hop back over to the leader's side, and I'll just emphasize a couple of key specific tools that are unique for the leaders. We have something called Coach's Corner. And Coach's Corner is a series of tips and training guidelines reserved exclusively for leaders, helping them with the essentials within performance management. So ideas around giving feedback, performance coaching, and even how to conduct a performance review. Okay, so each of these areas are customizable. We completely appreciate that organizations have their own feedback and coaching models, but you can look to customize this content. Okay, back to the main page here. A couple of key emphasis points just from a user perspective, again, both the employee and the manager. Draw your attention to the top of the screen, we do have what is an online help center for the users. And so this is really a self-paced training library, including documentation that is instructional by design with screen caps and descriptors of key features, functionality, step-by-step instructions on the key areas and modules within Sprigg. But we also have an online help chat. So anytime the user can reach out directly to someone at Sprigg with any sort of question, whether that's training related or technology related. Okay, I'll jump back up to the top here. And what I'll do now is I'm just going to take a moment or two to bring us into what is the final component of our demo today. I wanted to highlight what would be a feature called performance review templates. And within this area, we are able to actually design what would be a unique performance review template for a specific audience. So if I were to access, again, the PRT Flex is what we refer to them as, I'll click on here. And what I have now is the ability to go ahead and build a unique performance review template for a unique group. So if I create a new template, I can actually refer to this as perhaps the fundraising team. And we'll call this the fundraising team members. And now I can make my selections of which specific metrics are to apply to members of this group. So if they are not focusing on goals, I would simply turn that off. And perhaps their only metric would be in the competency side, then I would leave that on. You also have an option to introduce core values into the process. And then we have a rating score option as well. So we'll keep that on. A lot of our clients don't tend to use ratings, so you can have that option to turn it off and just simply have a dialogue. But in this case, we'll keep that on, and then we'll look to save any of our changes. And this now creates what is a unique template for members of this audience. My next step then would be to assign the specific individuals that belong to this particular rating tool. And we would also have had a option to create what would be a unique rating system if we wish to apply that. So in advance of our demo, I went in and I created a fundraising team ratings that is unique, again, to that group, strictly optional. You can also use what is the default ratings setting. Okay, I think we're up on our time now. We're looking at about 15 minutes, so I want to be sensitive to that. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to sit down today and view the Sprigg system. We really appreciate the opportunity to be considered, and if there are any other questions, we certainly would invite those to be brought forward, and we look forward to more contact. So thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.